Oh, that's the right camera. Hey, everybody, we are live. Still trying to operate my equipment here. No, I had the wrong camera on when we faded in, and so I finally got it. So we got lots of good angles here, and that was the battle yesterday, was trying to get those things to work right. So unfortunately, we still are at the mercy of my user error. I'm working on it. We've got my brother Ben here again. So Ben, you can say hi to everybody. And he is here to make sure that we don't miss important comments as we go. And so wrong camera again. That's my zoomed in shot. So you remember from last week that we were working on, let's see if I can get it right, this painting. So you can see the top of my head here. And this is the picture where we left off, where we were doing some basic wave painting technique that I've been teaching for a long time in my videos. And this is my offering to you, just to say thank you for getting the channel up to 300,000 plus subscribers at this point, where I want to just show everything that you want to see that I have been selling in my tutorials that I sell at my website, muraljoe.com. And you can still go there and get all kinds of videos that are, some of them are walkthroughs of painting, some of them are technique guides. I would love for you to take a look at those. I've got my friend Brian here too. Brian, come over here for a minute and say hi. He's just hanging out in the studio. He's gonna be extra company, and I'm really glad for that. I like to take advantage of help when it's around. I'm that kind of a guy. You know, if you here, scoot over a little bit so that we can see here. This is my buddy Brian, a little bit more on the schedule. Okay. All right, there we go. This is my buddy Brian. We've been friends for a long time. You might remember him from a couple episodes ago. And so I just like to hang out with people in my new studio that I've been using. And so he's going to help me with a little bit of the moving the camera around as well, so that we cannot miss the techniques on these. So you think you can hear, like, get me off the camera. Yeah, man. Okay. So thanks for being here, Brian. I appreciate it. Good company is hard to find. You know, I am blessed with lots of good company, lots of good help, including you. So where we left off was the basic techniques to build waves. And I like to say build, and I'm going to switch to my other view here. So to get this look, it's a pretty quick technique, but doing it in a very particular way is important. And so I ended the last episode, the last lesson, talking about the different things that I'm keeping in mind as I'm building this technique. So if you haven't seen that first show, then go back and look at it so that you can see the full explanation of these different parts of the wave. Now, we started talking about this, and there was a lot of good comments and questions about it. And so we, give me a second here. Let's remember. I got to remember where my different angles are. There was a lot of good comments and questions about putting things under the water. So that's what I want to move to today. Oh, yeah. In my painting, I got to give you the update on the painting. One of the last things that we showed was a painting that I've been hired to do. And if that was the only reason I was doing this painting, then I lost, because I am redoing it for like the 5th time. And I'm sure many of you have been there, done that. I'm going to take these out just for a moment so I can back up and grab my painting. And so this is the painting that I showed you. And here's the good part about messing up and redoing and messing up and redoing is I end up discovering cool new things that I can then show. I'm going to see if I can balance this in a risky place. I'm going to put this up here and then show you the painting so I can point to a couple things. So let me give you a good view of this. Here, we'll do the tight shot and we'll do the full shot. So this is what I landed on. This is the technique that is working really well for me now. And it took me some time to get to my method of getting these different color patterns in here, because I really want the look of not just reflection and underwater, but I want things happening under the water, and I need that to be in harmony with the reflection so that it looks like one body of water in movement. So, any of you that have tried this, you know that it's a hard thing to get all of the different things to work together to look like one continuously moving medium. So if we go over here, you can see a little bit closer, and I've got a layer of my underwater color mixed with the caustics, the little squiggles of light that get focused on the ground. But then as I go out here, I have less and less. And so this is a technique that I want to show you today of how to get this, maybe like a really basic, this was quite a detailed job. I'm trying to make this really nice, but you don't need super advanced details to get a look. We're after just the look of it, that you can build it as detailed as you want to, but once you understand how to do it with simple technique, you can always take your time, slow it down, and get more exact with that pattern. So we can start simple. We got all kinds of noises in the background here. You hearing that come through, Ben?
City living, man. What they don't know is that ambulance is coming to rescue you, because about 15 minutes before we were going to start, you whacked your dome on the table.
Yeah, I did, indeed. Yeah. Oh, man. I had to move a table out of the way. I was like, I got to move this table so I can get to this camera. I was like, man, I'm sure that something stabbed the back of my head. I must have a splinter back there. It still hurts, but it was
inspiration. That's what stabbed you in the head.
Yeah,
just run with it.
Yes, I just bumped a pimple on the back of my head. That's all it was. Ouch, man. Okay, let's move on. Everyday hassles, they never cease. Okay, so what I want to show you is the kind of colors that we got to mix to get a look like this. So we'll move to that. I'm gonna leave the camera at this view while I mix some colors. Now, I am very happy to announce that all of my voice exercises, strategies to save my voice are working. You can tell I have much more of a voice when you go back and watch last winter's shows that I was trying to stream live. I was hurting. My voice was just on the verge of being destroyed forever. And so I'm very pleased to tell you that a different way of using those muscles, a strategy, knowledge is a very helpful thing. And so I take that approach to everything in life. Whatever I want to be better at, like not destroying my voice, I want to be good at not destroying my voice. Painting, I want to be good at painting. I like to play guitar. These are just hobbies. I'm not an expert. I like to run. All of these things are things I do for enjoyment. And I just really like to approach things from a base of knowledge. Like, let's fully understand what people have already discovered and try to make this work strategically.
Yeah, so, Mary out there, she likes your technique so much. She says it's the bee's knees.
Oh, nice. All right. Thank you very much, Mary. That's nice. I appreciate that. I like the expression on your face, man, when you say it's the bee's knees.
She gets creativity points, man. Last time I heard that's the bee's knees was a long time ago.
Yeah. All right. Sweet. Yeah. This is one thing I love about my job is that it is not focused on a trend or a generation or, anyone and everyone can get into this. So we really can glean so much different perspectives on all different subjects of life from each other. This is, art classes are just so diverse and filled with strange folks. It's just such a thrill to be in that environment. I love it. All right, now, what I'm going to do is mix a color that is, let's start with an underwater color first. And last week, I mixed an underwater color. Let's get my other painting on there first. Hey, Brian, can I bother you to lean this on a wall somewhere for me while I switch? All right, I knew you were going to be super helpful today. Thanks, buddy. Thanks a lot, man. Okay, and then we're going to put this one up here. Now, this is going to be our practice canvas. Now, it's important to understand that I like to practice on trash because the pressure is off to produce something that you want to keep. You always feel really bad when your 5-year-old is producing the 1,000th drawing. You feel obligated to keep it, but it's like, I need to teach him the principle of practice not always making a final product, because we can't stick 1,000 papers to the refrigerator and celebrate them all. But it is a sweet thing. Okay, so now I'm going to mix my underwater color. So I like to think of things, colors, as not just a color name, but as the category of the object that the color is representing. So I have underwater color, reflection color. I have my underwater sand color. Those are the 3 colors that are in this picture. And so I put those strategically in these places to reproduce the look of a little bit of sand coming out from under this water. And so the color I'm going to mix, again, is that underwater color. And I've already got some of that here. I might as well just use it. So I'm using a 1-inch. This one is made by Purdy. I think last time I was using a Worcester brush. This is my favorite so far. You know, I'm not saying they're the best. It's just my favorite so far. They don't sponsor me. And so I'm going to use this 1-inch. It's just a contractor brush, the kind of brush you would get to, you know, paint your windows and door jambs in your house. And I'm going to mix these colors from my primary. So actually, I'm remembering that we should probably address that. Somebody, Ben, remind me. Somebody had a good question about paint emulsion. We should cover that.
Yeah, so there was a gentleman in the UK who heard you talk about your base paint emulsions and how you colored that base paint emulsions, but they don't use those terms over there.
Yeah.
So
okay. Yeah. Right.
I was curious what like an equivalent way of explaining that might be. What exactly are you talking about?
Okay. Got it. Yeah. I'm not going to use this color. This has black and white mixed into it. So I'm actually just going to mix a new one from scratch. Yes. To answer that question, every paint is, you know, think of the base as the glue that makes the paint stick. And the color is the pigment that they put in that base or the glue. And so if you just took some kind of a dye and just shot it into some glue, you will have made some type of paint. So then, or it's ultraviolet tolerant. So when I talk about getting a paint base, well, that's what they have in the paint store. You have the base, and you can read on a can. Let's see, I bet this says on here. This says what kind of a base it's in. So down here, well, this one is actually a colored base from the factory, and that's a good thing to talk about. I always look for a paint that comes colored, that they are not going to pigment at the store if I can find it. And that means that this base that the pigment would be shot into to color the paint is already colored when it comes from a factory, which means they probably use something more concentrated, maybe a powdered pigment, something that covers better. And that's why I tend to like those. So this one is a yellow that I've found to stand up well I'm going to put it here so you can see that's from Sherwin-Williams. That's a color that stands up well to exterior abuse, like ultraviolet rays. So the sun really just destroys yellows, reds, browns. And so I always look for paints. But if you look on cans, this says ultra deep base. So actually here, let's get a tight shot so you can see exactly what I'm looking at. Here, let's hold this up. And you can see that this says, right, let me find that. Do you see how at the bottom it says ultra deep base? Right there. Yeah, you got it. All right. There, we got it. I just want to make sure. So it usually says on the can what kind of a base. And the reason this is ultra deep is because the color is so dark. And if they put it in a base that is not categorized as deep, they can't put as much. So a pastel base is a different kind that will not get this dark. There's not as much room in that base. So this color is real dark. This is my phthalo green. So I'll stop talking about that. But to answer it thoroughly, we have the pigment that is in the base. And I'll even get into, maybe using a clear medium where you're using the base without pigment in it, essentially, when you're painting. A technique that you can do. So all of my paints, I heckle the people at the paint store. And that's what you have to do. You just have to stand your ground and say, no, I know that this is what I need because Mural Joe is this guy on YouTube and he says that he does it and I know that I can do it. You go in there and you say, I want a deep base with your blue pigment shot into it at the max amount allowed. That's what I do.
Yeah, just to let everybody know too, that the image is blurry, probably because of buffering speeds, live broadcasting. You know, we're kind of subject to the internet connections. So we'll make sure and zoom in nice and tight on the content while the internet tries to catch up.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. Okay. Now back to the color mixing. So I've got my primaries here, and I tried using my other color there, but it had some black and white. So I like to get a real deep color for my underwater, and that's what I've been using all this time. So I'm going to continue on that and remix. So this is what I would call phthalo green. So wherever you get your paint, all you do is you just look for that deepest turquoise color. That's what you look for. And
let's see that color, Joe. Let's see that color on your other camera.
Oh yeah, okay, good idea.
Yeah, we got a good look at your canvas right now. Let's get a good look at your paint.
Okay, here you go. Let's flip to this one. We got this right here. Okay, I got to kind of look at the monitor to make sure we're where we want to be. So I don't know if the color's coming through so well on that, but this is maybe a little more visible in that cup. See the green showing up there. So it looks super dark in the shadows here in the can, but this is such a fantastic color. It's in this one, you know, don't be concerned about the brand. Don't be concerned about the exact brand there. This is made by, it says PPG. Okay, so that's just a store that I was near, and I was like, hey, can you put some of your dark green pigment in this deep base for me? That's what I did. So then we've got this here. I put it in the cup, and now I'm going to add blue because I want that turquoise look. So I'm going to do the same thing. I've got a different quart. Now remember, this is just practice, so I just get my paints from wherever, but they're all the same theme. This is Color to Go. It says Color to Go from Sherwin-Williams. And this is also and it says real tiny there. You don't have to zoom in, but real tiny here on the can. It says ultra deep base, same thing. And so it's like a clear medium with as much pigment as possible in there. And I'm going to put that in this little cup right here. We're going to get the same thing going. So we'll put the blue in here so you can see that. I like to use my 1-inch brush and stir it all around. Then we'll see if my color matches. So I think this might be my favorite color, is this turquoise here, this blue-green. All right, let's stir that up. See what we've got. Oh, listen to that. I hate that sound.
Oh, but I love that sound.
Stop. Yeah,
something about a sloppy mixing little gooey paint.
Yeah, you're a sound guy.
Oh,
you know, Ben edits. You know, he's always checking the sound in the, you know, in our higher quality edited videos.
Hey, speaking of which, guys, I've been editing something pretty special. If you go to the top of the chat, I threw up a link. You should check out that link and let us know what you think.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we worked really hard on this project together, Ben and I. Biggest budget we've had so far, and we what do you call it? We pulled out all of the. No, I can't remember the saying. Pulled out all the stops. Is that something people say?
Oh yeah, we pulled them out.
Yeah.
All the stops.
In other words, we did everything that we know how to do to make the best work of art. And I'm telling you, this is the combination of artistic video work with the artistic painting in order to create something really unique. We're very excited about it, hoping that it goes far, and we'll be asking for lots of help to get that viewed by as many people as possible, hoping to make a show out of it, hoping to make a Mural Joe show where I can travel around to different landscapes and talk about the techniques that will be helpful to create those. Okay, so here's the color that I landed on. Just blue and green. That's all it is, just blue and green. And if I put this on here, you know, here's a, what the color looks like. And the only reason it looks a little darker here is because this is letting some of the white canvas through still. So I don't know, it's probably just a 50-50 mix, nothing too fancy. Now what I'm going to mix is a very light color, because this technique is going to involve putting the light under the water. And so give me 1 second here, I'll be right back. We'll be right back in a second. I'm going to go take a look at one of our cameras. So hang tight for just a minute. Okay, we're back. All right, we just had one little tiny glitch in the camera to address. That was all it was. No big deal. We're not canceling the lesson today. We got you there still, Ben. Everything's looking good. All right. Doesn't Ben look good? I just gotta look at Ben for a minute and say, check out that headphone setup in front of that Mural Joe look. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I love it. It's a good vibe. Okay, so now to mix this bright color, here's how you do it. Bright yellow. So here's the important thing. When you want light coming through a medium like this water, you really want to get the color dialed in. So I'm going to use a different brush. Here. Let's use this guy. And I want to use a different brush so that I don't get a whole bunch of green in this. So I want to be sure that I'm not losing color. So this is very valuable to understand. When you mix paint, you lose color. That's not necessarily the case, or not as much the case, I'll say. Now, you know what? I don't want to confuse everybody. I'm just going to say you don't get the same results when light mixes. So sometimes when paint mixes, you will lose color that you need to stay there because it would be there if it was light mixing. So paint is made out of, just picture millions of little particles, right? That's what it is. And what happens when things get smaller, they get more transparent. If the tiny particles were not transparent, well, that would be fantastic. We could just always cover our walls with one coat and never have to do two, because at the tiny particle level, you wouldn't be able to see through it. But since we have transparency at very small levels, we have filtering happening. So filtering is just like a pair of 3D glasses. The one eye doesn't see what the other eye sees because you're filtering the different colors. So when you have red and blue, for instance, mixed, the red's on top of the blue's on top of the red, and they are destroying each other's vivid colors. This effect happens all the time when we're mixing paint. So there are some different results that you get. When you mix blue and yellow, you still get a nice green. It's a very bright color with a dark color. So that's one where you don't actually lose a lot of color, and that's convenient when we're trying to paint water. But still, when I mix this color, I'm going to add white to it because I want to put all of that light shining through the water on the floor of the beach. And so I'm going to pull out some pure white. I've got a gallon for this one. We got a whole gallon. I go through the white. Now, I want that light to look like it's bouncing off of the sand, right? So I'm going to add just a little bit of orange color to it. But here's the problem that I run into is when I add too much orange, well, I no longer get that vivid color of light shining through the blue, because when orange and blue mix, it's kind of a muddy color. But I need a real vivid turquoise where that water's lighting up. It would be nice if I could just say, okay, here's the underwater color, here's the light color. Wherever I want light shining through, I'll just mix that light color in there, and voila, it'll look amazing. Except the problem is that some of the color gets destroyed. So I have to get as close to the more orange colored light as I can without going too far that I lose my turquoise. So this is a fine-tuned balance. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit. And sometimes you just have to do multiple stages to your painting. So I'll do one stage where I'm adding my yellower color to my water to get the light. And then if I want to add final highlights of the more orange tan color of the brightest light bouncing off the sand, I'll do that separately. But if we miss those colors in between, we don't have the effect of translucency. So I'm going to talk about this as I paint it too. I know that I'm just talking a lot without painting, but since we're doing this in workshop format, I don't want you to miss the important details of what I have to think about, what I have to mix in order to make these things happen for me on canvas. So what I'm going to do is just grab a tiny bit of red, and I could grab red or I could grab orange. Actually, here's a fun thing to try. Can I bother you again, Brian, to grab something for me? There's a little tube of orange down there. This is just craft paint from the I'm just going to say from the supermarket. Chaoshi. That's how you say it in Chinese. I'm learning Chinese still. Remember that? Okay. So a little bit of orange. I'm going to put that in here. So you can use these to just add little adjustments, something that I like to do. Now, it's not high quality paint. I wouldn't want to use this to paint a large wall in big quantities. There, tiny little squirt here. I'm going to put that other camera up so you can see. Can we see it on that camera? Here, whoa, let's find it. There, see that little shot in the middle? So I'm going to stir that in, and that's great, Brian. That's great right there. And that's just going to turn my color a bit more orange. It's just going to turn it slightly more orange because I don't just want green water. The blue and yellow is just going to make green. So if I put some orange, but not too much. So finding the balance is the key here. All right, let's go back out. Here, we're going to see this. We're going to see this picture right here. So I'm going to start in here and start putting waves on. And I want you to see this workflow that I developed over the course of doing the same painting 5 times. And here's the bad news. I'm going to do it over again. That nice painting I showed you at the beginning, that's for my friend that hired me. I'm going to redo it. I'm going to redo it again because after getting all that technique worked out, I still forgot about the perspective and where things need to be. So, it happens. All right, now let's go over and start painting. I got my colors. It's just 2 colors. And I want to show you this technique. Oh, here. Remember this color from last week? The reflection color. I'm going to just use this when I get to reflection. And so this color is just blue, white, and a little bit of red so that it turns slightly more purple. Now look, it's definitely not what you would describe as a vivid, like lavender. It's not very purple. It's not very blue. It's a very grayish version of these colors. So that's what makes it great for doing reflection on water. I don't know, you can do any color you want as the reflection, as long as it represents, what color sky or whatever is bouncing off the water. So my point is that this is my go-to color for reflection. It's a light blue plus some red to turn it a bit more purple, and that works great when it mixes with my turquoise color.
This would be a good time to hit a question from Jerry that commented on last week's video.
Okay, cool.
Jerry was wondering, the horizon color on the water should be more of the lighter reflective color or more of the darker water color. Does that make sense?
Right. Yes. The horizon color. Okay. So if I've got the question right, you're noticing that sometimes there's a different color on the horizon than there is in the foreground water. Do I have that right? And yeah. Okay. So here's what happens. We have a very different texture. I just have to pause for one moment because I realized something. I just have to give props to my friend Brian for being so willing to be here, because he can only hear me talking and nothing else. I got headphones in, so he can't even hear Ben. But you're welcome. You're welcome to use your phone and get on YouTube with everybody else if you want
Ryan's
to.
pretty sure you're losing your mind and hearing voices, but he's so cool. He's just
Hey,
"All
he's
right,
just hanging
dude,
out.
dude."
He's moving the cameras. They talk, but I realize he's got no context for who I'm talking to, what question I'm answering. He's not talk about being left out, man. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to answer that question. We got big waves way out at the horizon. So if I want to put a believable horizon on this, here we can just throw something up there real quick. Watch this. Watch how great this looks. So when we get out here, these waves are very spiky. They're big, in comparison to what's down here. So what happens when the water is smooth like glass, we're looking parallel to that surface. And then when it rises up, just like on the faces of all these little waves, we're looking into the deep water. So what do you think the water is going to look like way out here, where we have a lot bigger waves with steeper angles? You're gonna look at a texture that is not shiny. From a distance, it's like looking at the surface of sandpaper. So this is a very dark painting. I went with real dramatic contrast. So I'll lighten this up just a bit so that you can see the color. What I did was I added just a bit of red to this, and I'll add some blue as well. Typically, you'll see something that is this color shifted toward purple. So if this is green, it goes more blue. If this is blue, it goes more purple. And perhaps that pattern is just the result of the little bits of reflection mixing with the very dark underwater color. For whatever reason, I use this all the time to make a very believable horizon in my picture. I do a dark color that is a little bit closer. It doesn't mean that it's purple, a little bit closer to purple than the color that's in the foreground. So here we can actually have a darker color than the foreground because this is way in the distance, too far to see individual waves. And then when you get into the foreground, you're starting to see the reflection bouncing off of smoother water, and you don't have the millions of jagged points on the water showing you the dark color. So a dark horizon can look good on a painting like this. All right, so now let's get back to our underwater technique, where we're gonna start making this painting look a little bit more complete by bringing the foreground into place. So watch, I can just kind of use a impressionistic technique to do middle ground reflection. I'm using that same reflection color you just looked at, but all I'm doing is just accepting whatever texture slides off of this big brush to just be my middle ground. And remember, this paint dries darker. So while it looks very vivid and bright when I put it on, you always have to account for it getting darker as it dries. So just don't forget. That's just a reminder. Don't forget about the paint getting darker as it dries.
Hey,
All right,
quick
we'll
question for you, Joe. Rhonda's wondering, why do you use acrylics, or why do you use wall paint instead of acrylics, artist acrylics?
Oh yeah, great question. Yeah, that's very good. So expense is one big reason. And I suppose that if I was doing interior murals, there would be a lot of cases where I would say, maybe I'll just use the artist acrylics on this one if they were available in mass quantities for as low of a price, but they're not. Now, the other issue is durability. When I'm painting a wall, I want it to be durable. And so since those acrylic paints are so much pigment and not as much, just like we talked about at the beginning of the show, not as much of the base, more of the pigment. Because when you're doing a work of art that's just going to hang on a wall and be untouched, durability, you're not trying to set that up to be handled and touched a billion times in its life. You're just trying to make it pretty. But when you're painting a wall that furniture is going to bump, people are going to drag their hands across, you do want the durability. That's why I choose the contractor style paints. And these days, man, I'm telling you, the colors can be so vivid. I'll compare them side by side a lot of the time, and they are different. I have to give it to the art companies that make the tubes of paints. They are more vivid, but not by a lot. It's just by a little. So all I've been doing while I'm talking is just putting little triangle shapes to be these same kind of waves in here, but just putting a little dot here and there to give the impression of some more distant waves.
Do you use the same paints when you're doing an outdoor mural as you do when painting here?
Yes, in the way of being contractor paints. You know, they're sold at the same paint store, but they are rated for exterior. So if you use interior paint for an exterior job, they're typically a little bit lower cost, and you can expect them to fail in less than a year's time when the sun shines on them. So if it takes any abuse at all, they're great for interior because they have the hard shell. They dry hard, but then when the elements hit them, so exteriors have a lot more ingredients in them to make them durable. And for that reason, it's more difficult, just like with the comparison on the acrylic paints, it's more difficult to find the vivid colors. You don't get as vivid of colors. Now it's time.
I'm gonna hit you with another one.
Yeah, go ahead.
You did the foreground here first, and then kind of moved your way back to the horizon.
Yeah.
Is that your typical flow? Foreground first, or do you?
Yes, it kind of is. Yeah.
Is there a method to your madness?
That's a great question. Yeah, because for me, I'm so inspiration driven. I'm so content oriented. It's like, you know, if I'm imagining something, I don't want to wait to paint it. So I'll just jump over where it is and I'll just paint it. You know, I did all this research for so long so that I could do that. I want to be able to just do whatever I'm thinking when I think of it. So sometimes I'll just, you know, bounce around and paint things. But now on a more practical level, it is good to do foreground first in a mural just because you will waste so much time painting over. You know, a little painting like this, who cares what order? It doesn't cost me a lot of time to repaint this. If I put something over my background, it doesn't cost anything, you know. But in a big mural, it costs. You know, you spend 6 hours painting something just to paint over half of it with your foreground. So a lot of times I will do the foreground first so that I'm only painting the background that I need. Okay, now I got to explain to you what works with this paint. So this color that I put on here, and I'm going to go ahead and get a tighter shot of this. Well, I'm gonna go over to, let's see if we got a camera that can get a close shot here. Oh, here, if you can, Brian, just zoom in for me a little bit on this spot. Now, what I do is I start with my dark base color. So this is that technique that I landed on after redoing that painting like 5 times. So we understand the wave shape. We understand the parts that make it. And so you can choose your method of building it as long as you get the parts in place, make your own technique. So if I want all that light to shine through from underneath, then I'm going to put the base color on, and I might water down the next layer, which I didn't do, but I'm hoping that I can still manage this. You can water it down if you really want this to work better. Watch this technique that I do with this brush. I'm laying the handle down so that it just barely skims across the top because I want this paint to be in layers. So I'm going to warn you, this is not an easy technique. This is advanced, but knock yourself out. Try it because that's how you have fun and get better at things. Try hard stuff. So the idea is that I have.
Speaking of trying hard stuff, how do you take what is in your brain and get it on the canvas? Sarah is wanting to know.
Okay. To answer that accurately, the way you do that is to dedicate a lot of your energy to understanding the parts that things are made of. So when you look at water, you no longer see chaotic stirring motion. You see the different parts dancing together and interlocking, and you see what they're doing with each other. So that then when you imagine it, you have this sensible pattern, and you have step 1 accomplished of understanding what you're trying to recreate. If everything always just appears as random to you, then it's very difficult to say, why do I know that I'm looking at water? What are the parts that my mind is saying that's water? You know, what are the parts that make it? It's hard to do that if you don't spend energy identifying the parts. So you'll hear me talk so much in my videos about the parts that make things. And so right now I'm going through this and I'm making a part of this. This is the light bouncing off the bottom of the seafloor, off of the seafloor. So the sand is going out. Here it's getting colored green because it's out there under all that blue water, right? So I'm going to use this color combo for my middle ground water. And so I'll just stop right there and I'll do my last step after this dries. I'll do my wet on dry technique over these reflection areas. So I'll do this again because that was a good question and I was answering it while I was performing this technique. But I've got lots of ground to cover here. So I'm going to go more subtle as I get out into this deeper water. I don't want to see a lot of that underwater color when I get out this far. But a valuable thing to remember when you're doing a landscape is that your foreground, middle ground, I don't know, just think 80% of your ground is covered by those two things. Background happens on this tiny little strip. You know when you take a photo and you're really disappointed that thing that looked so big and amazing is that tiny little dot of a mountain in your photograph? That's because in person your mind is letting you know how big it is by your real distance perspective. But the truth is it takes up very little space. So if you want very three-dimensional paintings, think of taking your foreground out pretty far and just using that little strip for your background. Just a tip. So what I'll do here is put this base color on. And as I did before, I'm going to put whatever colors you want shining out of that water on top of it. You're just going to lightly skim over the top. So I'm just laying this on and I've got to make sure this is heavy enough that it's not going to dry. So when I put this on, I'm watching how heavy I'm putting it on. I'm making sure that I don't gouge with my brush too aggressively. I'm not getting my brush to be empty and spreading it out like this. See that real light turquoise color? That's what happens when I'm going too thin. So I want to make sure it's heavy enough that it'll stay wet for me. So now let's do this. Let's add a little bit. This is last week's color. I mixed this color with yellow and red, and I just let some of the turquoise mix. It kind of killed the intensity of it because I was going to mix it with this anyway. That's the same color that I put over here on the beach. Here, I just flipped to the other view here. Over here, I used that color to get this blend. I just gradually mixed that with the blue. So then, excuse me. So then, when I'm out here, I might use a little bit of that alongside of that yellow. But all of these colors, I need to make sure that I'm trying to keep it on top. That's what I want to do, is keep it on top of this dark color, like this. Okay, see how I'm lightly skimming across? I really lay the handle of the brush down because if I sweep it like a broom like I do when I'm doing other techniques, it's going to gouge into the paint. And I'm going to do that in a second in order to get a different look. So here, let's add some here. Let's go down here and just add some water to this on this white space here. Let's just use the painting as a palette real quick. Here's our light color. Here's our sand color. Now here's what I mean if you add water to it. Here, let's just add water. It's going to start getting real drippy. But watch how easy this goes right across there. When this is watered down, no problem. So thick paint mixed with thin paint is a real good combo for this technique. So this is my thinned out paint that I'm putting on here. So
hey,
now,
while you're busting out that technique, Joe, you want to hit one real quick about how in the world do you know how much to charge for a mural?
oh, good question, man. Yeah, and that was a good question that came up earlier.
For that matter.
Yeah.
Jason is cute.
Okay, I'm going to answer that, Jason. To finish this, right before I answer that question, I'll just finish this real quick. So now I'm going to gouge through this paint to get the dark color to show up in the shape see these reflection shapes that don't have the bright light under? I'm going to use the same reflection strokes. So you can do frowns, you can do smiles. I'm going to do here. We'll do more like the frowny shapes, just slight rainbow shapes that are more like calm water that has little ripples. So see how that creates a dark image, very different than doing the light, but I'm going to do that light over the top of these. So that's my first step when I'm developing my waves, is doing my dark reflection areas, because the water is actually blocking the light from escaping at this angle. So for the same reason that you see more reflection on the top of the water as your vision becomes parallel to the surface, you also, as you see more reflection, see less of the light underneath, because that is also reflecting down as the light on top. So more reflection means less light coming from under, just as it means more light coming from the top. So here I'm making my dark reflection areas, then I'll come through and I'll chop apart my light so that it looks more like those squiggly caustics that you see. Now, it can be hard keeping track of the different parts as you slice it apart. It's like, whoa, I don't even know what's what in this. So maybe that takes some familiarity and practice. But I want to be able to see little strands of my underwater light color. See, like this? There, now I can see those squiggles happening inside the waves. When this dries, that is a fantastic setup for my reflection. So now, to answer that question that Jason asked, very good question about charging for a mural. I always plan on doing more. I'm going to just paint while I talk. I always plan on doing more than I say. As long as I plan on it, then I never feel ripped off. Now, here's what happens. You go and you do a job, and you say, oh, it's going to take me 10 hours, and I feel like I'm worth this much per hour. Now, I'm not going to tell you how much you're worth per hour. I can't do that. Anywhere between 0 and 1,000, maybe more. But
maybe 1 million.
Yeah, maybe. You decide per hour. I based it on what were common rates in my area. You know, I looked at what other muralists were making, what paint contractors were making. What is it going to cost somebody to find this? What is the demand for this? You have to develop your own rate. And I just say, you know, maybe my philosophy is not the same as others, but I say start low and work your way up. You know, get a job first, and don't be mad that you're not making a lot, because it's kind of like school. You're just paying to get the experience. But then as soon as you realize that people will pay for that, you inch your way up. And so then what you do when you arrive at what you think is the rate that you want to try to keep making is you tell somebody that it is going to take so many hours, and you're charging them this much because it's based on the amount of hours that you think it's going to take. However, make that rate just a bit higher than what you want to make, fully knowing that you're going to give extra time. Always plan on giving that extra time, because if you plan on it, they will feel like they were really honored by you going the extra mile. You will not be disappointed, because you knew all along that your rate covers the extra time that you're going to put in. So you say that you're making 50 an hour, but really you know all the time that you're actually making 40, and you're okay with that because you've decided that you're worth 40. Or let's change it to 200. You tell them you're $210 an hour, and you know all the time, man, that siren. So you know all the time that you're only making 190 because you are planning on putting in that extra time. That is just my advice to you from the experience of having customers disappointed in the end when you're trying to just meet your mark every time exactly. They always want, and it's natural, it's human nature, they always just want that little bit of extra mile out of you. They're like, well, you're just going to just chop it off and walk away just like that, huh? Because you're out of time. It just doesn't feel right. So they want to feel like you really took your time, and then you charge what you said you were going to charge. And people tend to be very uncomfortable with a basic hourly rate where they don't know how many hours it's going to take. You know, that's unnerving for people. So the best way to handle it, in my opinion, is to say, here's the price, flat price. I'm going to do this mural for $2,000. And that is based on this hourly rate because I think it's going to take 50 hours. And then you do 60 hours. They're happy, you're happy, you knew it was going to happen, you planned on it. That's how I approach all of my jobs. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this dark color here. I'm very excited about this job. I'm going to, there will not be a show next Monday, but that is not the end altogether. It's just because I'm out of town. I have to go and paint a mural in Florida. I'm very excited about going to Florida. And so I got a friend that's going to teach me how to wrestle alligators down there. My friend Vince Ross. He's out there. Hey, Vince. Hey, buddy. Miss you.
What's up, Vince?
Yeah. Oh, man. I get such a kick out of meeting people from different parts of the country. Man, cultures are different, and they're so rich and diverse. You know, you find someone from a different part of the country, and you're like, you do what? What is swamp cabbage? What did you just say? You know?
Wait,
so fun.
Swamp cabbage?
Yeah, man, that's a thing. They got a festival right about this time of year.
Man, we don't do that around here.
Yeah.
Hey, can you mix artist acrylics and wall paints without any issues?
Absolutely, no issues. Yeah, you can definitely do that. You can mix them right together. However, I would just be mindful that of the sheen difference. You know, whenever you mix different kinds of paints, they're not likely to have the same sheen, meaning how shiny it is. So here I'm chopping the tops of the waves. See, there's my reflection shapes. Yeah, so just be mindful of the sheen difference. Right, now I'm going to go into the middle, all the faces of these waves. Cut it apart. You know, it helps if you make that sound. Sometimes I don't even hear myself make those sounds. People tell me later.
Joe's over there having laser battles in his brains.
Well, I'm making stuff. You know, for me, I'm making a three-dimensional thing. So it's like I hear the sound of a shape getting cut. It's like, yeah, we're going to cut this shape. Take that off. I don't have sounds for power.
You got to feel it to make it. Hey, Crystal's got a good one for you. She's trying to paint some water, but she's trying to do on her ceiling as if she's underwater looking at the surface of the water.
Ooh,
on her.
Good job for tackling us.
She's trying to level up. She needs
Dude, that's awesome. Nice. Well, congratulations for trying something awesome, first of all. That sounds really cool. Sounds hard, so don't feel bad if it doesn't come right together for you. So I definitely want to point to my underwater series on that. So you know, I would ask, did you say Crystal? I would ask Crystal if you've seen my underwater series. And in that series, there's a specific set of shapes that make it look like you're looking up at the surface of water. However, I only did it in perspective. And I didn't do it as though you're looking straight up. So the thing that's different and similar to doing a cloud ceiling, when you're looking straight up at something, you know, you don't have the perspective of like things getting smaller as they get further away or stacking them in front of each other like people in bleachers. And so it has that challenge. So, you know, I think the best way to handle this is for me to just do like a demo on a scrap board and just try to handle that. It's a pretty straightforward process. And in the end, what you want to do is make diamond shapes that are very distorted and obscured. You don't want to see nice diamonds, but if that's your basic geometric shape that you are destroying as you go, you create your blue, that is your water, and that is getting more reflective as it goes to the edges of your ceiling. And for the same reason that I have more reflection as I go out here because the vision is more parallel. Well, if you're doing a ceiling, make the edges all around your ceiling more your reflection colors. So the underside of water reflects the sea floor if we're under the water. And really, let me point you to my underwater series for this to make it really clear. But to convert that to something you're looking straight up at, I would say make the middle very bright, like you're looking up at the sky, and then make less and less, meaning smaller and smaller shapes as you approach the edges of your ceiling. That is the pattern that you want to follow. And you just have to, think about the perspective. Where do you want people to look at it from? Usually the middle of the ceiling would be my perspective.
There's a lot of interest in how you charge for murals still, especially in perhaps charging by the square foot. Is that ever a method you use? Like when you're looking at when you're talking to a customer and they're showing you a wall and they're saying, I want you to do this or that or the other thing, how do you break down that
the answer is
their
yes.
desires into like a tangible, how much dollars and cents is this going
to
be?
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. That's good clarification. Now, depends on the job for sure. So there are cloud jobs are the most common square footage job for me. Those are the jobs that I'm going to charge by the square foot because it's so predictable, and I don't have to do like a really different kind of detail in a whole bunch of different areas. So I can go across the whole ceiling and pretty reliably plan on similar time frames no matter what part of the ceiling I'm painting. However, if I'm doing like a downtown street, well, that's very diverse. The sky is going to go quickly. The windows and doors of buildings is going to go slowly. And so when I'm doing that, I am probably just going to estimate the hours that the project is going to take me and approach it that way instead of trying to make an hourly rate fit into that. So the hourly method it's trying to put a square peg in a round hole, it just doesn't fit for some jobs. Just depends on the nature of the job. Is it real repetitive, doing a lot of the same thing? You do square footage. Or is it really diverse and the time is going to go in the number of edges that you have to paint? That's the way I think of things, edges. Think of the edges. How many times are you going to have to be careful about painting an edge just right? So if I need to paint a huge mural, I'm going to use a huge brush. If I use this brush, it's going to go a lot faster than this brush. And so the size is not always an issue. Actually, it's seldom the main issue. If I'm painting the side of a giant building, I'm going to use a sprayer and big rollers. I'm not going to ever touch a brush this size. If I'm doing a big building, it just doesn't make sense. So
that's good advice, because Mr. Micro here was talking about how he spent 40 hours on his painting so far and he's only like 20% done, on a little canvas. So
but
square footage and effort invested are not necessarily
not the same. Yeah,
directly related.
No, not directly related. So sometimes it works out that way, but I probably a lot more often go to the just predicting the amount of time method rather than square footage. So on this technique, I'm going to put less of this color right here because we're way out here in deeper water now. So I'm going to really stir this in a bit. Look how the yellow dies down to a green. So if I'm in deeper water, that's good. But I've still got my dark green on here.
Hey, for you latecomers, check out this link I just threw in the chat. It's a sneak peek of something fun we've been working on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, cool. Man, I am so glad, Ben, to have you keeping an eye on that for me. It was next best thing to pure chaos when I was trying to manage answering questions, reading the chat.
Dude, I'm over here translating German, Farsi.
Awesome. Dude,
we got some Romanian stuff happening.
Nice. Tell me more. I want to hear about the people from other places. That's cool, man.
Just chit chat. We got them coming in from all over. Germany.
Sweet. I've been to Germany.
Have you?
Yes. I learned to say
it.
Dankeschön, bitteschön.
What's cool? This is cool. We got Lisa is helping you out by answering questions in German to a German-speaking guest.
Whoa, thank you
So-
very much, Lisa. That is so sweet. I'm so glad you're doing that.
If anybody else out there is blessed with multilingual talents here, they are welcome to step in and have a chat.
Nice. Wow. Yeah, when I first saw a stream of comments saying thank you to one of my videos that I posted way back years ago, I knew. I was done with, well, I still have my ego. I still have my bad attitude days, but I knew at that time that what is a lot more valuable than talent is helpfulness. Why do we all watch YouTube videos? It's like we've all seen enough of the best doing the amazing things. We're all just numb to amazing things at this point. It's like, yeah, a guy jumped over a 1,000-foot building. Oh, cool. I'll watch that when I have time. It's just, there is nothing that shocks us anymore. But when something is truly helpful, that is still worth something. So I have so enjoyed the people that have rallied around this channel, been behind the cause, helped with answering questions, supported, always been there with encouraging. The encouragement goes far for a guy like me. I'm a sensitive guy. So when you say thank you, when you say good job, or when you say it's okay, Joe, you messed up, but we forgive you.
Hey, respect to all the sensitive guys out there.
Hey, for sure, man. Me and Ben know what it's like. Part of
Hey, I'm a crier. I'm a crier,
thank you,
dude.
Brian. Brian's in the room here. He's like, you need a hug.
Hey, when the tears need to flow, let them go.
Yeah. Knowing what you are, man. This is something that I've learned as I've gotten older and my ego has gotten smaller, is that I need to be a manager of myself more than a server of myself. So, when I'm young, when I was younger, I know a lot of you still see me as a young buck, but it's starting to feel faded. I was interested in how I could serve myself. How can I meet? I have all of these desires for all of these things to happen in my life. How can I serve myself? Now I value more, how can I manage myself? Because managing myself means considering my needs, but a more responsible approach to the long-term effect of things and what is more beneficial for the people around me, managing. So, Ben knows what it's like. He's a sensitive guy.
Oh,
He's just
dude.
like, dude, is genuine.
It is your greatest. It is your greatest asset, and it is your greatest obstacle to deal with your feelings as an artist. I know this.
Oh man, you got to be a good manager of those things for sure. So I find myself fighting that battle all the time. Okay, so this is drying. The whole time I'm painting this, I'm killing lots of time painting this, filling this in, because I really want you to see. Now we've got lots of glare. I'm realizing we got lots of glare. Can I bother you to close that window right there, Brian? So you've seen this technique. I'm gonna close that so that you can actually see the colors better. There we go. That's perfect. Thanks. Yeah, and you could actually open the one behind you. That'll probably be good too. I'm bossing this guy around. Listening. He's very gracious to be in here right now. Okay, so I'm going through here, filling this thing out, waiting for this to dry because I'm going to do this same wave technique over the top of that as it's dry. So up here again is where I added my red and blue to get that more purple horizon. So to complete my horizon, I'm way over here on the edge of my picture. Just horizontal strokes. This is just practice. We just want it to look good. We just want it to look good at a glance to show that the technique is working, right? We're not trying to make a masterpiece. I don't want to get obsessed with my finished product thinking that I'm going to sell this for a whole bunch of money. So I'm just putting these colors in, just getting the general impression. Here's my blue straight from the can. This blue, because I want this color to shift away from the green toward the blue, then to the blue violet maybe as it goes further and further out to sea here. Because just these colors alone will look familiar to people who look at the ocean and will be like, oh yeah, it looks like some tropical water there. Okay, now here's what we do. We've got that in there. Now I'm gonna go like this just to get this to dry faster, I'm going to try to chop this apart a little bit more, thin out the paint, because we're running low on time as I progress here. That's going to dry pretty fast, though. Another good reason to use the water-based paint when you're trying to learn is you can just slam through technique after technique. It dries. Just
Hey, how do you choose your watercolor?
I just paint what I want to see.
Like what color? You know, actually, if you check out some water painting videos Joe's got on YouTube, he paints his water red, like it's filled with blood, like Jaws is.
Yeah. That is I think that's the wet on wet technique, doing the waves or adding light. Maybe
just goes to show there's not a right color for water. There's just what color you want it to be and how to make that color work.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Ben. That was eloquently stated. The relationship between the colors is what brings it to life. You know, just think of the natural world. There is no color of water that you would look at on the ground and say that's not water. You would just say that's water that has this color in it. What's making it that color? If it's red, you might think it's blood. If it's brown, you might think it's dirt. If it's purple, you might think it's, I don't know, Kool-Aid, Gatorade.
I think it's weird.
It's weird. Purple water, that's weird. Maybe there are some colors that don't work. So what I'm doing now is just putting so much of the lighter color on, because I'm still waiting for this to dry so I can do my final finale technique there, where I put the reflection on top of that.
While you're waiting on that to dry, we got Georgia, New Mexico, Algeria, China in the house.
Sweet. We got people from all over. Nice. Very cool. I was just in Georgia. You know, we were curious about a place we've never been, so we went over to Jekyll Island in Florida. Man, so beautiful in the winter. That place was amazing. Just we were riding these silly bikes on this quiet island. Man, I had the time of my life there. So me and my wife were just there celebrating our anniversary. We've been married 20 years now. And so it was very fun to go. We just picked a place on the map. We were like, well, we've never been to the South. That'd be kind of cool to see all the trees with Spanish moss. Never seen them in person. So then it worked out real good, because I'm there just eyeballing all the trees, things I've never seen. You know, I look like the most touristy tourist that you ever saw, because I just can't stop staring at all the new stuff that I've never seen before. And it worked out good, because here I am going to Florida, where I'm going to paint a mural that has a bunch of trees with Spanish moss hanging off of them. I'm like, well, look at that. What a happy coincidence there. I got to study in person the content that I'm going to be painting for the first time. Painting Spanish moss hanging from trees. So look at this, how I get less and less of that green. Now watch what happens. Let's say let's put some of that darker color. Now, yeah, we're still showing up good there. And so I'll mix my dark color with this tan sand color in there. What I'm trying to do is get a darker underwater color of my sand, whatever it is. Now I'm just going to put patches of this, and the shapes that are left in between are going to be squiggles. Because what happens when you put a bunch of circles close enough together, you're going to get some bright squiggles left in between. And what really helps with this technique is that I put my dark paint on first and I put the light paint over the top. So when I scrape it with my brush, notice my handle is pointing at the canvas here, where when I was putting it on, I was laying the handle down and putting it on real light. So then when I come in here, and sometimes I don't even need to apply more paint. I just start cutting it apart like I did with all these waves. I just changed the ratio of the light color to the dark color, because I'm here in the foreground, and now I want to see mostly light color, because there's not very much water on top of this. There's a lot of light escaping, a lot of light bouncing off of that dirt from the sun hitting it, and then I just want to gradually blend that. So when I get in here, I'll put my base color on, and my base might be a mix of my two colors. So I've got my sand color, I got my underwater color. I always think of them as those things. It's never just brown. It's never just green. And just like the person who was asking, how do you choose your watercolor? Well, you know, this is my point. I'm thinking of it as my underwater color, not thinking of it as the green that is right for water. I'm not thinking of it as the blue that works for water. I have them categorized by the object that they represent. Okay, so see how my patches leave these designs in between the negative space. So a real helpful thing in creating is to be conscious of the thing you're creating and the space in between. Now, you know, Ben and I, we've gotten real philosophical on this. Let's not go too deep.
We don't get philosophical.
No, we're not philosophers, right? Yeah, we've been criticized a bit for that. So the space in between, it's in everything. All of life, all around you, there's the space left in between the thing that is in focus. You know, you got the thing that is being thought of, being looked at, being heard, and then there's the space in between. So that could be the quiet in between the noise. That could be the bright squiggles in between my dark patches. But when you're creating, I have found this very transformative in my work, creating shapes that look believable, that take people there, you know, that create the experience that I'm trying to create. It's a tool for creating. So if I understand that that negative space is worth taking some time to look at, it changes my focus for a while and helps me to stay fresh, you know, helps me to stay on top of the job and keep my mind alive and into my work. Okay, now this is pretty dry. I'm going to start putting reflection on here. This is going to get darker as this is dry, so it looks very dark. But watch what happens when I put reflection on this. This is the part that I just love. Now, if it doesn't work out, then you're going to be like, wow, we just spent how long watching Joe put a bunch of random colors swirling? Yeah,
way too long.
That's going to be bad. Okay, watch. I'll put some water in this paint right here. And we're going to stir that around and get it to be not so heavy because I want to see through this. The point here is that when I put it on, this is my wet on dry technique for the most part. Some of these areas are still kind of wet, so we'll see what happens when this hits them. But the intent here is that my more transparent reflection color still allows some of the darker colors to show through, and it won't dry quite as fast. I'll be able to manipulate it and fade it, make some smoother gradients by watering it down and then keeping a wet brush. So I've got my, you know, if I switch here to my view, I've got on my easel, I've got my water, and I'm constantly dipping in that water. Then I go to my rag and I wipe the brush off. This is my workflow all the time. You know, I wipe it off. Okay, then I paint. You know, I go in here and paint some things. Okay, then I rinse. Then I wipe. Then I paint. I taught this to my 5-year-old, Zayden. He's got it down, man. He's like, okay, Dad, then I do this. Then I go and then I rinse. Okay, then I go to the rag and then I go paint. Man, he's already got the workflow. That's it. That's how I do everything. Okay, now I'm going to go back here and start putting reflection on this guy. And so this is my half and half picture right there. Okay, so here we're adding light. This is the final step where I bring it all together and hope that I did a good job. My brush is nice and wet, so when I put this reflection on, it is not going to be completely opaque. I'm aiming for the tops of my waves where, since I sliced them with my brush, you saw me slicing like this at the beginning of each section in order to get longer stretched out shapes. Coincidentally, the angle of the water also squishes the shapes into long squiggles. So this really should harmonize well, the shapes with the color relationship, because as I slice through it, I'm making things zigzag this way. And then when I'm more on the face of the wave, I flattened out my brush stroke to be more broad and not just little tiny slices. So here, I'm again going to my skinnier, more slicey strokes. I'm going to put less and less of that color as I get into the foreground. And I'm going to aim for the tops of dark areas. And wherever I have a bright spot, I'll try to put this just below bright spots because that's just a pattern. So see this? Bright spot, bright squiggle. A great place for reflection is right here. The reason for that is because as the face of a wave opens up and magnifies a shape, because it's like this, it's like as it swoops out, we don't need to get into all the science of it, but it spreads the light out, making it darker. And then where it concentrates, right usually around the base of the wave, you'll see more concentration, maybe somewhere in the middle as well. But I don't want to put these over my lightest areas, because those lightest areas are darkened by these reflection areas. And then I don't want to put them right at the top of the wave either, because what we're used to seeing is the water concentrating that bright spot somewhere near the middle or lower part of these particular types of waves. All right, let me show you what I mean by completing some of this. Let's put reflection there, put some here. Let's get the brush more wet.
We have
some
some
fun
people
here.
chiming in from all over the planet here. We got Prince Edward Island. I don't even know where.
Whoa, cool.
We got South Africa. We got
man, cool.
Lithuania. We got Huntsville, Alabama, Portugal, Denmark, Romania,
cool.
Saudi Arabia.
Wow. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you. Can't say thank you enough for taking the time.
Speak any of those languages, Joe?
Yeah. Okay. Well, to the people in Portugal, I can say bom dia. How about that? As well as the people in Brazil, right? And let's see. We can say, nope, I don't know many other languages. Anybody that speaks Spanish, I can say, hola, mucho gusto.
Good. Greece? You know any Greek?
Nope. I would love to learn. If I come to those places, man, I love to learn. Please teach me.
Or French, perhaps? Jack in France?
No, I'll make a fool of myself. I'll butcher somebody's language.
Yeah,
Okay.
Merci beaucoup, Jack.
Okay. All right. Better you than me, Ben. Yeah. Okay. So what I'm doing is following my dark areas, just so that you don't get to thinking that I'm just randomly putting this reflection wherever. I'm following the areas that I've mapped out. So see this real dark area, great place to put lots of reflection. So let's since I really left that spot dark here, let's change it up and just put a little different shape. Like this is more level water in here. It's not rising up and showing us very much. But then where I have these swooping dark lines, those are where I want to put my reflection. So this water has kind of a boiling look to it because of all these frowny shapes, right? So we put that in there. Just follow the darkness. Not a rule for life. Not a rule for life. Don't want it to sound like that. Just follow the dark. And we're going to get, and the further away you get, the more you put that reflection on there. We get far away, we start blending these things. All right. So I'm just looking for my darkest spots, and I leave fewer and fewer of these shapes. Also trying to be conscious of my, what was I going to say? Lost my thought there. What was I going to say, Brian? What was I talking about? Fewer and fewer of my light spots. That's what I was. Thank you, Brian. Thank you. The light spots. Man, I'm so jealous. Brian was an airline pilot for some time. You know that? He's flying planes, man. He got to be over the ocean. He got to be over all kinds of cool places. And if there's one guy that can tell you about what clouds look like from overhead and all different wild angles. When I got cloud questions, I can actually ask Brian. He was explaining to me what the weird pancake-shaped clouds are that are on the other side of the mountain here. I'm like, Brian, why in the winter?
Pancakes?
Yeah, man, we get these crazy clouds that look like saucers on the other side of the mountain. Yeah, Brian. And I'm a cloud lover. I'm painting them. I'm showing people how to paint them. So when you know what forms something, well, similar to this water, when you understand the motion of it, it helps in the development of good technique. Okay, so now I'm getting smaller and smaller. Time to do some little shapes. Let's say the water is getting a bit more choppy out here. So as I get way out here, we're going to put smaller shapes on. And you're welcome to zoom in a little bit tighter if you want to show some of this technique, Brian, you can do that. Get some of this tiny wave technique in here where I see more reflection. So maybe here in the middle ground, we're still on the reef. You know, we're in the shallow beach, so we have lots of reflection. But, you know, to make a beach look believable, understanding that once you get out past the reef, you suddenly have these larger waves that are breaking, and then the water gets darker because the shapes are getting bigger and choppier. So I'm going to go so high with this reflection, but then I'm going to very, very suddenly fade it out and let the horizon stay dark. So here my brush is running out of that color. I'm just chopping along here, chopping these waves. And when I get up to here, I'm not going to reload my brush, not reloading it. I'm just going to let this stay just slightly loaded with the paint, like this. And finish the horizon like that, leaving it dark so it looks like that distant, deep water. Okay, now from here, it's all just having fun, trying to do whatever little details you want to add in there. Go to the dark spots, make sure that you've got a difference. You know, you've got your areas that have more reflection. You've got your areas that have more light. Understand the parts. So, you know, I can have all the fun I want, trying to get more detailed. I can reload the colors anywhere I want, redo parts of it. No big deal. You know, when you've got your 1, 2, 3 workflow, you can just do your painting in sections, takes the stress off. You don't have to worry about trying to match things up because you're very systematically going through getting things to look the way you want them to. So when I do the rest of this picture, what I'll do is just put the exact same technique side by side and overlap. And all of these shapes should blend together well enough to look like one cohesive painting. How's it looking on your end, Ben?
I mean, it's looking like people out there need to hit that like button.
Yeah.
Come on.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
I mean, this is good stuff, everybody. You know, actually, being completely genuine, the more people that click like on the video, then the more people get to see the video because YouTube figures it's important. So you're helping out Joe, you're helping out other people that are having similar questions as you. So yeah, it's a good thing to do.
All right, man. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Ben. Sounds a lot better coming from you. See, this is nice. It's nice having someone else say that instead of me trying to tell people to like me. Hey, like me, like my stuff. Doesn't come across.
More people. Hey, there's a reason. It's good for people to know the reason.
Hey, thanks.
Hey, here's a quick one while you're doing those reflections that are looking super awesome.
All right, thanks, man.
We got a sword fighter out there with a couple of questions.
Dude, do you really fight with swords? I gotta know. Okay, what is it?
Their name is Sword Fighter. You think they just named this? Anyway, so they're if they're me too. They're wondering if you're just starting out drawing, is it better to draw in value first before moving into colors?
Oh, very good. Good. Thank you, Sword Fighter, for asking that. Very good question. I say do it at your own pace, do whatever's helpful, but it is good to recognize the importance of value. You know, when Ben and I worked on, you know, for those of you that have went and watched that teaser that Ben posted at the beginning, a new method that I introduced was putting them up on a value chart because value is so important. So if I nail these colors, but I scramble the values, meaning what's lighter and what's darker compared to each other, then it's all for nothing. It's all lost. So getting the value, I would say, is a higher priority than getting the color. I would say it's the higher priority. So if it's helpful to you to work on value first, I say do it. I say do it, you know. But if you're working on color first, understand that if the color's not working, there's a good chance that it's because the values are a bit off. Good chance of that. That's something that we run into a lot. When I'm doing workshops, when I'm walking people through color mixing, then I notice that this is a very common hang up. is getting the right color, but the value is off. Suddenly you've got, I don't know, the shadow of a cloud is darker than the shadow of a rock. And so it doesn't make sense in the painting. It's being translated as not a big translucent cloud, but some dense thing. So it looks like a paint blob on the canvas, you know. So this is very important. Yeah, value first. And to emphasize that, hey, could I? No, I better not show that on camera. I don't know if the person who hired me wants that being on YouTube. Never mind. I was going to show you some piece of art. I was going to show you a pencil drawing. Yeah, I'm sorry. No, I was going to just show you a pencil sketch. Hey, Brian, can I bother you to get that pile of papers right there? I'm still going to show you some pencil sketches.
Is there a way, though, also a follow-up question from Sword Fighter, that you train your eye to be able to differentiate the values of the scale, you know, from white to black?
Yes, definitely training. Training is very key to that. And so it can be so hard. So you can look at a red and a blue. You know, you get to two colors that are very different. Here, I'll give you an example. These are very different colors. Okay, you tell me which one is darker. So let's say you're out in nature and you see some light hitting the sand. It's some color like that, or, you know, in Arizona, we have a lot of rocks that are that color. And so then you have a color like this. Okay, we're going to make this into some green. All right, and we've got this. Let's go about that dark. Okay, now you tell me which color is darker. It's hard. It's hard. You know, so when things are very different color, if we converted this to black and white, oh, you could very instantly see which one. You could see which side had the shadow, which side had the light. But when you're looking at a colorful world, this is most definitely a skill worth developing, is trying to identify. So in my opinion, and I'm looking at it in person where the camera could be scrambling the darkness for you, this one is slightly darker. So then, you know, if I lighten it, I want to be super sensitive to that. If I see an area where it flip-flops, and now this one, oh, well, in this spot, it's slightly lighter than this, but it gets very hard to tell. So I'm very sensitive to value, so I can quickly bring two very different colors together until they have the same lightness, so that if you converted this to black and white, this line might be more difficult to see because they might look the same. And that's a skill that you can train. Absolutely, you can train it, and it will help you. That's a good question from Sword Fighter. I love seeing
who actually fights with swords.
Yes, that's awesome.
From
That's
Lithuania.
Cool. Whoa, man. I got to go to Lithuania. Man, I'm so jealous that I don't just, you know, people that travel the world for a living. I'm jealous of that. That's what I'd do in another life. I'd just be a world traveler. Just go enjoy new adventures every day. I think it's the adventure of it. It's the thrill of it that's appealing to me. I'm not like trying to be a better person. You know what I mean? I just want to see the adventurous new places, meet the awesome people. Okay, again, putting my dark.
I think right now a lot of people are on that same page, John.
Yeah, yeah, right. Okay, I'm gonna put some. You know, we're in like the middle ground here. So here I did a dark base, maybe something like this. So light colors on top of dark color again. This is a heavy one. I should have put some water on there. That would have been wiser, but it's still working. Let's put that there. Let's put this on here. Lighter color there. Okay. And, you know.
Hey, so you just took some, there's some people here who are, they're struck by how you just slapped paint right over your carefully crafted waves there to do that little value comparison.
Yeah, yeah.
What? I mean, how is it that you're not, you know, more careful, more precious about your work?
Yeah, yeah. You know, that's a very good question. You know, for me, if I can't redo it the same way I did it the first time, just as easily as I did it the first time, it's not worth saving. You know, it was something I was striving for from the very beginning of my pursuit and doing this as a career was reproducibility. I need to be able to have full control over the shapes, the looks that I want to make, and do them as many times as I want to do them. And I just did not ever want to rely on chance. And I never wanted to save something. I'd get a good look out of something, and then I would say, but how did I do it? And I'd try to do it again, and it wouldn't come out. And I would just be like, well, I don't want to save it until I can do it 2 times in a row. So it's just always been where my values are. I just don't care about the finished product. I care about being able to be in a moment like this, where it's like, you know what? I feel like seeing waves. Let's make some waves. To me, this right here, right now, this is live, man. This is where I just really feel alive, is behind this brush, talking to people about the stuff I found. Hey, look at this. Check out this thing I found. Isn't this cool? That's what it is. I'm just like a kid that's seeing cool stuff, wanting to show it off. And the end product, I think I've just seen a lot of paintings that have beautiful waves. I don't need to just make another one. What I want to do is be the guy that found out a reproducible way to transfer the trick, to show the trick. I value that, the learning, more than the outcome, I guess. I'm not like that with all aspects of life. I don't want to start sounding like
You're
like
so zen.
Yes,
So
yes.
zen.
It's not like that. It's not like that. I'm like anybody else. I'm doing the stuff that brings me thrills. Okay. All right.
You
We got
want to
our
talk
darker
about paint
color.
materials real quick?
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure. Let's do that. Yeah. Do we got questions about paint materials?
Yeah. So
Yeah, let's do it. Let's talk more
was-
about paint materials.
Yeah, Tatiana was out there trying to shop for paints, just like you advised that
Yeah.
she shopped for
Yeah.
paints.
Yeah.
And so when she's trying to get blue, she got a response at Sherwin-Williams that she had to get a blue paint. She couldn't have just the base paint and then have blue added.
Right.
So-
Yeah. That's good. Thank you for bringing that up. Common struggle. Man, I'm sorry. Tatiana, that happened. It's happened to me also. And so, when you go into a paint store, it can be a tough thing because the employees are not trained to, in a lot of circumstances. It's not the same everywhere you go. It just depends. So you might end up going to one of those places where the employees are not trained to take the lead from the customer on the actual tinting of the paint that they've been using a machine to do all of this time. Look at this. Side note, I'm stirring water into this underwater sand color, shortcutting my process because I want the thinner paint to layer over the thicker paint. So I'm just adding water to that. So back to the answer to the question. You go into a paint store, you have to be able to say exactly what you're doing with bold confidence. You say, listen, I'm painting a mural. I'm not painting a wall. I'm using this color to mix with other colors. And I need you to take your deep base and I need you to put 4 ounces of your blue pigment in that base. It's just your presentation, don't back down. And sometimes, in the end, it is the employee that has the authority. I don't know what it's like where you are, but it's a battle that I have to fight too. Sometimes it's annoying. So then in the case that they say, sorry, company policy, you have to pick one of the colors so that we can guarantee our product. We can't warranty anything that you pick out, whatever the reasoning is. Then
How do you
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to
how
say,
do you pick your magenta was my question, but finish your thought.
Yeah. So in the case that they don't let you, pick a chart color and understand that it is the relationship between the colors that is going to get the look for you. It is not getting that exact right color, although it is totally a bummer if you can't get that beautiful deep phthalo green or phthalo blue that is just all one pigment. There's no other pigments in that base when I'm using it. Yeah, so the magenta is that same story. I use magenta a lot. I don't have the can right here with me. We don't have to get it out, but it's the same. It's like the blue. It's in a whole bunch of my other videos. That magenta that I use, I just say, hey, listen, take your deep base, put as much magenta in there as the product will allow, because there are ratings on products. You can only put this much. You can only put this much pigment in this base, and that's information that typically just the employees at the paint store are using, for their tinting purposes. But you can know it and use it. You can say, put as much as the manufacturer will allow, put as much as the paint, as much as what is allowed when you tint that. And so I just ask them for their magenta pigment. And sometimes they'll say, well, we've got 3 different kinds of purples, so which one are you talking about? And I'll say, let me look at it. Will you show me your pigments? I get all up in their business. Oh, man. I'm totally an annoying customer.
Here's some good questions for you. Yukon is got a couple questions from Ibiza, Spain.
Okay.
Have you ever given up painting a water surface because you didn't manage to convey a real seawater surface?
You mean like the painting didn't go well, so I just threw in the towel and said, forget it?
I mean, like, do you only keep going if you're inspired, or like if it sucks, do you keep going?
Right. Yeah. Now listen,
what's your threshold? When is too much? When is punishment as a failing artist enough punishment?
A day. It's the end of the day. I can, this is what it all comes down to for me, is what do you have the energy to focus on for entire days at a time? What can you do for a whole day without stopping? That is the thing that you should look into doing, because there are not many things that I can do that with. I definitely can't do it with numbers. Definitely wouldn't want to do it with money or bookkeeping or scheduling. Other people could. So the thing that I can look at all day is different experiments. And so approaching it from an experiment basis, I have a tolerance for failure for multiple days in a row. I definitely have a never give up spirit when it comes to painting. And that comes from a core belief that it is my place in life to find that answer. I was made to do it. Therefore, it's a matter of when, not if. And that confidence, you know what? I bet you want to see my painting, don't you? That confidence is what ends up driving me to the answer eventually. It gives way. A technique comes through. I did that painting 5 times. I still have to do it a 6th. And because of that, I'm able to show you this technique. This technique happened last week. I'm literally showing you something that I just developed last week. Now, the reason it was developed last week is because for years and years, I was studying these different things and experimenting with different methods so that it gradually was taking shape. But at the point that I was hired to do it, a look like this, I said, you know what? It's time to dial this in. It's time to figure it out. And now here we are. I think it's the non-giving up attitude and not needing it to happen for you that actually makes it happen. It's like in a poker game. The guy that wins is the guy that doesn't even seem like he needs to win. It just seems like it goes that way. All right.
How did you come up with the ideas for that fantasy mural behind you?
Oh man, all my pictures are just a place that I want to be in the moment. I just think, man, that'd be really cool if I had a friend that was blue and had wings and was coming down from the sky to tell me about what's happening up in the trees. And that would be cool if the trees were going all the way from like a beach to a upper world. And I'd come up with those ideas just based on where I want to be, stuff I want to see. For me, that's heaven. For me, I'm like, I'm kind of living for that moment when my life's over and I finally get to go to heaven. And it's like, this is where creativity is let loose and you can see all of these different amazing things, So it's like, that's for all of us. We all have our different versions of what is paradise? What is heaven? What's the place where we want to be? And that's where all of my fantasy content comes from. It's never really trying to make a statement as much as, just like the best songs are just presenting a feeling that, that someone just wanted to swim in for a while they sang that song. My painting, it's like I just wanted to be in that world. I was just trying to be there. while I was painting it.
So Grant is curious, when you walk away from a painting or you get pulled away from it and your paint dries, you know, it completely settles down.
Yeah.
How do you get back on it? Are there considerations, you know, to jump on a dry painting with fresh paints?
Yeah, well, that's the value of having techniques that you can reproduce, doing everything from a method, not a feel. You know, if you execute a painting from a method that you've taken time to develop because of its reliable results, you know, like there are a lot of different ways to pound in a nail with a rock, the brick, run into it with your car. A lot of ways to pound in a tent stake. But if you just find a hammer, you're going to be able to do it 100 times in a row every time, just like the previous. So developing that right tool is what gives you the freedom to walk away from the painting and come back and then evaluate, okay, well, that dried, so I definitely can't continue that technique now, but it's no big deal to just start it over. I'm just going to overlap the picture right here. So here, I'm overlapping onto this. The reason I can walk away from this, let it dry, and overlap here is because this technique is clockwork for me. It's just going through the motions, and all the considerations that need to be done in order to turn this into you know, like there is a lot of artwork involved in thinking about the shapes, the sizes. Well, that's all trained over a lot of years, you know, and so the newness of this technique doesn't really stand in the way of all that. It's a new technique, but I'm familiar with the parts of waves and water, so I can come in here and very consistently reproduce the same thing that I just did on the other side. I can come in when I'm in a bad mood, when I'm in a good mood. I don't need to like my painting. I can hate it. It'll still come out. It'll still come out real similarly. Although I will say, you know, loving my work makes the paintings better. That definitely remains true. All right, so now I'm going to go up here. I'm going to start bringing my colors up to that horizon. This is the part where I start adding some reflection color and some red, just to very impressionistically get those colors. And the reason I'm repainting it is not because that one's bad, but because I just need it to blend. I just want it to blend with this. I guess I didn't really have to do that. I could have just left it. Could have just left it there and had it work out. Yeah, we got too much blue on there. Okay, so let's put the horizon in place. Get that. Remember, it dries darker, so that looks lighter right now, but it's probably just right. That color is probably right where we want to be. And these little variations, those little red streaks, I like those. I think they're cool, so I'm just going to leave them. Maybe somebody's out there in a fishing boat chumming the water. So. Okay, so out here I
want to be out there in a fishing boat jumping in the water.
Yeah. Oh man, remember that fisherman that we saw? I never see people catching fish. We went out to Lake Mary to film our glassy lake painting that is soon to be released. It's gonna hit YouTube real quick here. And lo and behold, this guy is out there catching big old fish in a lake that I never see it happening. And so Ben gets out the telephoto lens, and we got this footage of this guy letting these big old floppy slimy fish in. I was like, man, this is perfect. And so you see me in that little preview Ben posted, you see me painting some fish jumping out of the water. We actually had this great, he had to have been a pro. He was there just catching them like left and right while we're talking. It was pulling my concentration away. So here's the reflection color. So now,
hey, check this question out while you're doing that reflection color.
Yeah, okay.
This is a good one from Sarah.
Okay.
She's wondering if you take into consideration the fact that these paints dry slightly darker when you are selecting your colors.
Yeah, absolutely. However, since most of the time I'm selecting primaries, so when I'm at the paint store, I'm selecting primaries, but mixing for the painting, absolutely. I have to think about that. When I'm mixing it in a pot like this, you know, I have to remember this is going to have more color when it dries. When they dry darker, they also dry typically more colorful. And so this color, I have to understand that this is going to look nearly black. when it dries because it's so dark now. And you can see this is that color on just the tips of these waves. You barely even see color. And I was okay with that. It looks like deep, dark water. And then we have this vibrant translucency when it mixes with lighter colors. So to answer the question, I definitely have to, it pays for me to consider that. It can be an annoying oversight where you're like, oh man, those colors looked great when I was mixing them, but now they're on the wall and my mural is not what I wanted it to be. That happens, you know. That can be an annoying thing. So now I'm going through here. I'm gonna finish this up. If anybody wants to squeeze in any last questions, any subjects in here.
That's right. We're listening. We're keeping in a sharp eye, guys. Hit us up. Now's your chance.
I'm gonna wrap up this reflection right here. And you know, one thing I could do before we leave today, if I have the canvas for it, you know what I'll do? I'll use that triangle. That'd be kind of a fun thing to throw in at the last minute with a big brush. It'll be like the 10-minute challenge. I'm going to see for what's her name that's painting the underwater scene, painting her ceiling like she's underwater. You know, I want to get to that. So what I'll do after I get the reflection on here is we're going to do a board. I'm going to get that triangle board that is the base of my easel, of another one of my easels. And I'm going to paint it like we're underwater. And I'm going to do it in just a few minutes. We'll see. I might fail. You might witness a Mural Joe fail. And then you can discount everything that you saw today.
Joe, were you mentioning something about the drawings?
Oh, thank you, Brian. Thank you. Will you give the
Brian
you brought
with the save.
No, thank you. Yes, I did mention the drawings. Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to look at that camera right there. So Sword Fighter was talking about value. And so I grew up, I mean, we're talking about years and years spent drawing pictures. And when you're drawing, you're thinking about value. So this was a lesson that I just did. Let's get the glare off that. There we go. This was a lesson on drawing faces and cartooning people that I did with my students yesterday. We actually have a in-person drawing class here. If you're rolling through town, man, get a hold of me. I would love to have you here. And so there's another. So the point in showing you these is I love to draw. I love to draw with pencil before I paint. And so I'll draw my landscapes. Don't look at that. That's done. Here's some. We actually did that on another live show here. We got human form there. In one of these, there was like some landscape. Here's some fun human form where I'm toying around with different character ideas. But values. If you make lines too dark or too light with pencil, suddenly you get objects that you're not trying to see. This was an idea for a mural that I did not get hired for. I submitted this idea. It happens to the best of us. And so I did hot air balloons rising into the sky with the sunburst behind it. Values is all that I have. That's all I have to get this to look right. So the difference in darkness between clouds, night sky, faces of waves, shadows on the balloons, I'm trying to just very delicately fine tune the differences between what's darker and what's lighter. And so practicing that makes you better at this. But, you know, without question, it's helpful for that. Thank you, Brian, for reminding me. I wanted to hit that example.
You ever think about doing battle bot scenes, painting battle bots? Like,
oh yeah, I think it'd be super fun. You know, it's the time goes, you know, to the things you get that are in demand that you get hired for. You know, there's a lot of fun, silly stuff that I would love to be spending. Not that battle bots are silly. We're not calling battle bots.
That's serious business,
yeah, man, that's the real deal.
I mean, that's a battle for honor.
Yeah, yeah. I would totally do it. It's fun. It's awesomeness. I would totally do that.
What's your next live stream going to be about?
Well, we're going to continue with the water because there is so much to cover. And I had a great question. Forgive me if the name's wrong. I think Kathy asked a question about what are the different parts we're looking at in waterfalls, cascading water, crashing water. And I haven't had a chance to touch on that. And so I want to eventually get into that. So the next episode, and let's just say that one is going to have to be in a couple weeks. because I'll be out of town. I'm going to start talking about what happens when we have water splashing around, moving, and things like falling and waves that are getting sent different directions, more choppy water. So I'll do some quick examples of that in the next live stream.
Does all paint dry darker, or is it just the acrylic wall paints that you're using?
In my experience, all but white dries darker. White
All
is
types, all mediums of color.
Yeah, I have never painted. Well, oil does not do it near. If it does it at all, oil paint doesn't do it nearly as much. And so here's what's going on. I think is that the water is completely evaporating out. Where with oil base, the oil is hardening, and so it preserves. You can do fat brush strokes on an oil-based surface, and you'll see those brush strokes in 100 years being big and textured. The water base shrinks. So there's space for the light to bounce around in the water when it's wet. Well, the particles get concentrated, they get closer together. So it's like having more pigment per volume when you have the water base. But since nothing really changes from wet to dry volume-wise with oil, I think that's why we see that difference. I might be wrong, but it is true still that oil will not do that to you. And I think that it's legitimately the reason that a lot of people enjoy working with oil more, because what you see is what stays. Well, what you put on the canvas gets preserved, and you can be creative without the inhibition of trying to consider what the color is going to change to. So, it was just worth the trouble for me to have the convenience of the water cleanup and the ability to quickly layer.
So Daniel has heard that portraits are the hardest things to paint.
Absolutely.
Is that
Absolutely.
How would you feel about that statement?
Oh, you can go watch some of my Harry Potter painting videos and see that it was a struggle for me too. I still don't feel like I nailed it, even after I spent 2 years staring at that thing. Gave up on it for a while, came back. Of course, I was trying to paint it without having a working model. I didn't even have a photo to model it from. I was trying to do my own pose based off of knowledge of just like I do everything else, trying to have three-dimensional knowledge. And the result in the end was good, but would have been better, more like lifelike if I would have just used a model. So yes, to validate that comment, it is definitely super high difficulty level. But I can tell you something really helpful about painting portraits. I can just tell you, I don't even have to show you anything. Just understand that learning from multiple guides all over the web, the guides that show where eyes, nose, and mouth are super valuable. If you learn that and then learn how to memorize that, draw it generically without drawing a person, then when you draw a person, you will simply be scooting those locations, tiny movements. You're taking the mouth, moving it up a little, taking the chin, moving it down a little, taking the eyes, moving them out a little. Tiny adjustments to what you have memorized. Not only are you able to do a better job of getting things in the right place, you're able to do it faster because it's familiar. It's familiar territory. You're like, okay, this is that one part where the mouth meets the nose, whatever it is. And you very quickly reproduce it because you've drawn the generic face that you can draw from guides over and over. So you don't need my material to learn that. Just go look at someone that's done a good job of showing guides. And I would even say it doesn't even matter what the guide is. They all seem to do a good job of identifying the same thing, that there are very repeating patterns, very repetitious patterns in human form, in human faces. And so you just learn those patterns, and then all you're doing is scooting them just a little bit. Now, I do want you to go and buy my video. I'm not going to let this slide without advertising my video. Go buy How to Draw Faces.
MuralJoe.com.
I do have a video on that, drawing faces. And in that video, I draw my face and I draw Ben's face right beside it because we're brothers, and I wanted to show how we can identify those differences with a particular method, so it was fun for me to do that. All right, what do you think? That painting is ready to wrap up. All I'm doing is blending this together. So I'm taking the reflection it's good that we went long today. You know, I'm glad we did because I have to skip next week, and I feel like as long as the content is still relevant, maybe can be helpful to somebody, I'm happy to go longer. I got nothing else to do today. Well, that's actually completely false. I'm behind on a million different things.
Hey, so Yukon in Ibiza, Spain has one follow-up question.
Okay,
trying to paint
Yeah.
to paint some water, having a hard time.
Yeah, it's hard. Don't be discouraged. This is something that
How do
takes
you-
lots.
Yeah, how do you feel about trying to create an exact rendering of water versus just kind of capturing the theme of water?
Oh yeah, start with that general impression. Go impressionistic, absolutely, because not only does it help you to understand where the essence, where the difference is. You know, it helps with here. Let me go to this shot here so you can see. It helps. What was I just saying? I just completely blanked.
Impressionism.
Yes, Impressionism. Yeah. So if you do something impressionistically, you find a fast technique, you copy someone else's technique, you find that it helps you to identify what is causing the look. You know, if the look of clouds can be accomplished real messy, then that means the look is not in the details. So it helps you to see what actually causes it. And then from there, you can say, well, if that's what's causing it, how do I maintain that while adding details and keeping that system? I love impressionistic paintings. It just hasn't been my thing to paint because of what I'm trying to chase down. You know, I'm trying to chase down the being able to create on demand, knowing what makes the look reproduce. So I'm trying to reproduce it in a particular lifelike way to prove the concept. It doesn't mean it's a better way. I love Impressionism because it captures it so well with so much less detail and teaches us something about what's in that. You're like, wow, the beauty of that thing is even seen through this lens of chaos. You know, it's just a cool thing to really show where the essence of something is. I always thought it was cool when people do crowds of people on the street and an impression. I was looking at some French painting, I think, and I see people walking on the street with their reflections in the puddles. It's probably a famous painting. I was thinking, man, that is so cool. They didn't draw a single face. They didn't draw a single hand. There's no foot. There's no knee. They just did these brush strokes that have the right general colors and shapes and numbers that you're like, oh, there's people walking around on the streets. It's cool. You know, I always loved that. So yes, I think doing an impressionistic look is super cool. So if I was going, my voice is starting to fail. I wasn't overusing it at the moment. Let me take a sip of water here while I'm painting.
Got to stay hydrated.
Oh man, I'm telling you. So if I was going to do, oh man, I needed that water more than I thought. Okay, wait, let me finish what I was saying. If I was going to do an impressionistic look on this, Impressionism, okay, now we're not worrying about where the colors go. We understand that if we have these colors, it kind of has the look of water. So what we're going to do is we're just going to slap them on. Okay, we're just going to put that there. We're going to put a little bit of this. We don't need a lot. We just need a little because we're in the shallow water. Okay, we're going to go zippity-doo-dah right there. Put that in there. Let's put some of this. We're going to have some fun putting these colors in different places, but generally keeping them in the same pattern, right? So generally speaking, I'm keeping the lighter colors toward the beach, darker colors as it goes up into the more distant areas, but I'm not even thinking twice about where my brush actually lands, except that I don't completely blend everything 100% because I like to see the differences. And then I'm going to take my reflection color and just go da, 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 like this. And now I'm doing a more impressionistic approach of my beach, you see? And I think that that's fantastic to practice that because it's liberating to see how much of the details they're slaving over are actually necessary to get the look. Because whatever you don't paint, imagination of the viewer fills in, and the imagination of the viewer will do a better job than your brush will. Okay, so what were you going to say, Ben?
So Sarah has a question. She's curious if you think on paper before you paint.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Now, it would have paid to think a little bit more on paper before I painted that last one, because here I am seeing, after I did it, like, oh, I'm going to change the perspective. I should have lined that up better. So I think the most valuable thing on paper is getting the perspective lined out. Getting that figured out is very valuable. It is a bummer to get 80% done with a mural and realize that it would be better if you had simply rearranged the locations of things just a little. Something that can be figured out in minutes with a drawing, you know. So yeah, planning on paper, I'm all for it. I think do it. I don't like to stand in anybody's creative flow, you know. I don't want to be in the way of that, but man, it is, like I said, I used to do so much right on the wall just because I could, you know. Go straight to the wall with primary colors, red, yellow, blue. And then, you know, people are standing around saying, whoa, this guy, look what he does. He's very good. And I'm just eating it up. I'm like, yes, I am good. Yes, they finally see me. I'm special. And then the picture's done, and I'm looking at it thinking, well, gosh, you know, that really would have been better if I would have left room to put the rest of that person in the picture. Now, I have to cut off their left arm right here and leave that going off the edge. And I have this really cool looking rock that's square in the middle. And that's a bummer because things square in the middle of my painting look like a bullseye, not a work of art. You know, and then you realize, yeah, and you just showed off in front of a bunch of people and they all know where this is forever now. And they're going to be able to come back and look at it long after you've moved on. Kind of like an artist that writes a hit and he's so done with being defined by that. He doesn't want to be known as the guy that sings bop anymore. But it's out there.
Now, how you gonna pile on Hanson? Come on.
Yeah, oh, it's good. That's good music. Bop.
Hey, last call for questions, everybody. We're a couple hours in. We're gonna wrap it up soon. So if
Yeah.
you got any questions,
Wrapping it up soon. Okay, wait. We're wrapping it up soon. Yeah, ask the questions. I'm going to switch to that triangle piece. Okay, there's our beach. We're going to do more another time. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. We're going to come back. And so, could I bother you, Brian, to grab me the triangle? Yes, that triangle piece of wood right there. Yeah, so I'm going to get my bigger brush. Okay, I'm going to skip to my primary colors. I'm going to do things the old way that I just now criticized and said was a recipe for disaster, reputation. I got stuck having to look at pictures, having murals represent me for a long time to come that I really thought could have been planned better. Thanks a lot, Brian. Thank you. Okay, let's turn that into a water ceiling, okay? You don't have the name on hand of the person that asked that question, Ben.
Yeah, that was Crystal.
Crystal, for Crystal, we're going to do a water ceiling like we are under the water and we're looking out. And if this isn't finished in 10 minutes, then
10-minute challenge.
Yeah, man, this is all we've got. We got 10 minutes. So I got my white paint right here that I'm going to be dipping into like crazy. I'm going to put that down here so that I don't fling it on this carpet. We'll use white. We'll use blue. And we'll use, what else? Red. White, blue, and red. Very good. We could do all kinds of water with white, blue, and red. I'm going to use the red to do reflection color. Hold on, let me rethink that. We're under the water. We're not over the water. I'm not going to use red. I lied. We're going to use blue. Maybe we can just do it with white and blue. Let's see how it goes. White and blue. Here we go. Okay. Let's get it on this one. And let's see. I think we, okay, yeah, we'll zoom in a little more. We'll let you be in charge of following, Brian. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put my color on. This is going to be my underwater color that I have chosen. You can be under green water. You can be under purple water, whatever kind of water you want to be under. But remember that when you're underwater, you're going to see some hue shifting, as light is illuminating the water from some depth. So we got light coming from above, but we want it to look like we are down in the water. So we're not going to do just white. We're going to make this shift toward turquoise as it illuminates. So we want it to get toward yellow is what we want to do. When light goes through things, we want to shift that color toward yellow. And so we'll start with this nice blue base on everything. Just slap that blue here, slap it up here. See, if I leave it real heavy like that, it's going to be there when I need it. I might need blue later, and it's faster to just grab it from the canvas than it is to grab it out of the bucket. So we're going to leave globs of it right in here. Now, what I'm going to do is get myself a turquoise color. Oh, look, I've got it. My pre-mixed turquoise from the painting. Let's use that. We're going to put that right in here because that's where we want lots of light. Now I'll grab pure white. This is the middle, so this is going to be the brightest spot. Okay, so now depending on the direction of the waves is going to be the layout of my diamonds. I can make little diamond shapes just with a little stroke of the brush like this. See how if I just go that diagonal pass, it's a diamond. It's a diamond. All I got to do now is just kind of connect them together like this. Now, these diamonds need to be very close together and leaving just little bits of dark blue diamonds toward the middle. Okay. And then as they move further and further out, they're going to get more spaced out. So we're going to put more of this white, brightest in the middle, because that's where the light really comes through. But right now, I'm just going to use it to mix on. I don't recommend this method for painting your ceiling. I'm just doing it quick to get the feel. Okay. Diamond, diamond. See, that's going to create the look of some waves. They might not be perfect diamonds. I'm oversimplifying. You know, you might have some crazy current making all kinds of weird little patterns in here. Here, let's try some just for giggles. I'm just going to put some different shapes in there. Maybe a wave is kind of bending as it travels along. Maybe it's right in here. We make another row. I don't know, something like that. Who knows what could be happening? But what I'm going to do is make these more and more spaced apart as they scoot out toward the edges of the ceiling, like this. Then we're going to take this and make this middle part the brightest area. So here we don't have much blue. Let's scoot this out. Let's work on our little diamond shapes like this. Bring this in here, bring this down here. Bring these together. So once you have the diamond shape, it's going to look good if you kind of make it more obscured, meaning not so perfect. We don't want like perfect little diamond shapes. We're not trying to do that. We're just using them as a starting point. Understanding that diamonds are the resulting shape from cross sections. You know, when you have a bunch of lines, such as the paths of waves, you're going to end up with cross sections. And so that's why I start with a diamond. It's not that we always need to have a diamond shape visible. Now what I'm doing is just tying them together, putting little connections. If there's two that are close together, I'm going to just turn them into one, turn it into one more complex shape. We're going to go up in here. Now there seems to be a very sudden cutoff in water where you go from seeing reflection. The underside of water is like a mirror. When you're looking up out of water, all this dark blue is a mirror. You know, so it would not be uncommon to see this reflecting whatever's there. So if all there is deep blue sea under it, well, all we need is the deep blue. But if you want to create some additional special effects in it, then you might add some other color. I don't know, whatever color your couch is. You might do that. So I'm spreading out this blue like this. And maybe when I'm done, maybe my last touch will be just adding some extra color to that. Let's work some more on this light middle section with a bit of my phthalo green mix that I used in my beach painting. Sound effects, gotta have the sound effects. Okay.
So Fari was asking if this was at night and you're looking up through the water, what would your color selection be then?
Oh, just make it as dark as you want it to be. The pattern is the same. You're still going to have the moonlight shining in, making blue colors if it's blue water. If you just darken everything, then the darker you make it, it's, it really is just that simple. The battle here is getting the color relationship of it shifting toward the green as it gets brighter, and getting this more and more space texture to go. As I go further and further out, I want to see more and more space in between these, because there are fewer and fewer waves that have the right angles to see out of the water. When you're looking more and more parallel to the surface, you're not going to see out of it. It's going to bounce all the light right back down. It's not going to let the light come through at that angle. When we look through water, it doesn't like to let the light come through at a parallel. It bounces off, just like skipping a rock on the water. Same deal. It's hard to get that rock to go under the water if you throw it real hard parallel to the water, but it will if you throw it straight down. So here I've got my area, and I'll put a lighter. Now these areas in between the dark blue, I want to make those get lighter. So let's take this. Let's keep the shapes, but let's make them lighter, like this. And let's just put some little, some little trails of diamond shapes, like this, just somewhere in here. Put some of the blue in there so that it's gradually getting darker. So both of my colors are getting a bit lighter as they come toward the middle. Both of my colors are getting darker as they move toward the edge. And that's the pattern that I'm trying to reproduce here. Okay, let's put it there. We got some dark ones here that could be lightened up a bit. Dark ones down here. That one could be lighter right there. Let's make it a little darker. We want gradual change from the darker to the lighter.
So when you're doing all of these little shapes and everything, Death Rocket, there's a name for you. Death Rocket is
nice.
Is curious. How do
camera
you achieve the
the
flowiness of water rather than just having hard lines?
Oh yeah, very good. Yeah. So once I understand this geometric pattern that's here, well, it really pays off to go out and look at water, and then maybe try to reproduce some of the patterns. So maybe I work in a line. Maybe I say, oh, let's make like some parallel curving trails of waves rather than just doing a whole bunch of diamonds. So the diamonds is just a starting point. It's just a geometric, easy to understand starting point. It's like learning block letters before you move to cursive. And so, you get that understanding down, and then we can try to, kind of obscure the shape, try to make rows of waves instead. So maybe here I have these happening in a row like this. Okay, then I put another row right here. Now I'm not like just working a bunch of diamonds. I'm actually trying to make these related rows right here. Let's take this one, go down here, do that. Let's put another row right in here. See, so now it's kind of like we've got waves of ripples up there happening. We start to see a pattern if we do that. So we can create that look. Let's take
Would you
this.
see any of the reflection of the sand that's behind you in these colors that you're looking up at?
Oh yeah, you definitely could. In the dark, not in the light, in the dark. That's where the reflection would be.
Would you go with a red or a yellow to achieve that?
Well, whatever color you think's under there, but everything is underwater. So remember, it's getting filtered through the water. So whenever you put some color on there, don't be afraid to let it mix with that underwater color in order to get that heavy atmosphere look. So here I want my brightest color, bright. because we want the light coming through there, you know. So we're going to put this brightest, maybe do a little bit more adjusting on these. See how these are real dark still? The more I complete the pattern, the less interruption there is. Like this. Oh, I feel like we already hit the 10-minute mark. I'm feeling it.
Yeah, we hit the 15-minute mark.
I didn't do it. I didn't do it in 10 minutes. Okay. But this is the look that we want to see. To get the underwater look, we want to see these colors gradually letting less and less light through, and we want to see, you know, just like an MC Escher painting or something that's like a crazy pattern. We want to see more and more space in between our light as we go toward the edges, more and more blue space until it becomes all the dark color and none of the light color. And then if we want to put some reflection here, let's just throw in some, how about that one? Let's just see what it looks like. Let's just throw some of this in here. Less and less as we go toward the middle because it's less reflective right there.
Looking pretty sweet.
Right here is where you're going to see whatever colors are bouncing off of that underwater. So the reason that this changes is because we are assuming that this is a ceiling where our angle that we're viewing this is different. Thanks, Ben. Thanks for saying that. We're just assuming that we've got a different angle of view, which you will if you paint a ceiling. So you can put some of those living room colors or bedroom colors in your waves as you approach the edges. So I build this technique again, just like all the others. I build this technique off of understanding of the why, or let's say understanding what's happening when I see that look. Understanding that I've got my reflection in there, I got my different parts, I got the light coming through in the middle, I got less light visible as it goes out here. And there seems to be a threshold where it's just like no more of the white. It gets here. It's not just a completely gradual change. There's a line where it just stops. And then you move to just reflection colors around these edges.
So Farah has a question for you. When you're painting water, do you need to mix other colors to make the blue more gray? Or perhaps how do you make the blue more gray?
Right, yeah. You don't need to, but you certainly can. So again, that's getting into what color should water be. Well, make it any color that you want the water to be. Just remember the pattern. Remember that you have your underwater color, and then you have your reflection color, whatever that is. In our case, we chose this for reflection of maybe the dirt, or maybe the, I don't know, maybe a sunken ship. Whatever colors you want, you just put those colors into your reflection. And as long as your relationships are there, you don't want to get too hung up in what the other things, you know, what exact colors things should look like. I just thought it'd be cool if we had like a light burst. So here's what you do after you do a light burst. You throw the shapes back in there, repair the shapes, because you don't want the shapes to be completely destroyed by the light. You want them to still exist in there. So put a few shapes back into here.
Jessica thinks that it looks like you're painting an underwater explosion with bricks and debris flying outward.
Nice. Yeah, it does kind of look like that. It's true. Yeah, it kind of does. This is a very impressionistic approach to this, for sure. There we go. Now let's just revive the bright spot in the middle. Let's do that. Make a few little diamond shapes. Maybe a few little rows of waves happening. But put them on the spots that are already bright, you know. All right, let's put it in an art museum. What do you think? So that's just a quick rundown on the pattern that you want to do. Now you can do this much more carefully when you have time when you really have time to try to make your own ceiling, you know. You have to just blast things together. Those are the relationships that create the look. But like I said earlier, Impressionism, I love it. Trying to get the look with as little effort as possible. Okay, now I'm looking at it on the monitor screen. Those rays of light didn't come out as magical as I hoped they would, but we're just going to let it lie.
I mean, for 20 minutes, those are pretty fantastic.
From a distance. From a distance, right? There it is.
Everything looks like explosions.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I think we're on to a hit then. All right, well, it is time. It is time to call it a day. And I just want to say I'm very thankful that you're all here. Again, Ben, do we got any last minute comments that we need to hit?
I mean,
Before
we
wrap
clean
it
them
up?
all up, but everybody be sure and check
Okay.
out the link that I am about to throw up in the chat here
All right.
because it contains a preview of something that is very exciting coming up from Mural Joe.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Man, I can't tell you. Ben and I, we have just put our all into this. And, you know, we're both hitting 40. I'm over 40. Ben's not quite at 40 yet. We're like,
Dude,
man,
40 this year.
what are we going to do with our lives? We're saying to each other, what are we going to do? And we're like, man, let's just make the coolest artistic thing that we can together. Let's team up, make the coolest thing that we can make. And so we pitched it. We got funded. We did it. You know, it was an ordeal. So I'm so eager. We are both just so eager for you to see this. And so we just have to get everything in place before we officially release it. Super excited. So yeah,
When are we
definitely
doing
check
this
out that.
again?
We're going to do this again in 2 weeks, 2 weeks this time. So let's do it on a Tuesday, not a Monday. So let's do it in, you don't have a calendar handy.
That's going to
do
be
you?
the 23rd, 2 weeks
Thank
from
you.
today.
Thank you. Yeah, same time, 10 o'clock, 23rd of February. I'll be back from my trip to Florida. I'll be
Mountain
eager
Standard
to
Time.
Mountain Standard Time. I live in Arizona here. We're broadcasting from Flagstaff, Arizona. And so I'll look forward to seeing you there. And I think Ben and I, you're helping us to get trained. I think we're getting better at this, aren't we, Ben? Aren't we getting better?
We are.
Yeah.
We're killing it, man. We're killing it.
You got to
If
tell
I do
yourself
say
things
so
like
myself.
Thank you, man. We're trying. All right. I'll look forward to seeing you then. So we're going to wrap it up.